Hi everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here today with the Maxwell Chambers Unplugged podcast. My name is Charmian Aw and I am a tech and data partner with Squire, Patton, Boggs. I'm based in Singapore and I'm absolutely delighted and excited to be joined by Alexandra Geiger, who is a private clients trust and estate partner with MME Legal. Alexandra, so good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too.
It's been a while,
yes.
actually. So perhaps we could start everyone off by telling them how we got to know each other.
Yes, do that. You go first.
So I remember a very impromptu and candid, I think it was coffee meeting that we had. It's probably late morning at Providor in Raffles Place. And I think because you reached out to me just to say hello and to see if we could grab coffee. And I said yes. I confess I was quite taken aback because I saw this beautiful, blonde lady who was at coffee, and we started chatting about, our paths, our journeys in practice. I found out a little bit about what you did and that you were seconded to Rajah and Tann, which is obviously a very eminent law firm in Singapore. And I know several partners in R&T. And so we connected the dots. But actually what I was most inspired by through that short meeting of ours was the fact that you are a working mother. You are a partner in a law firm. We had so many similarities. The fact that we had, I suppose, youngish children. We had made partner while, juggling practice and making partner whilst we were also, dealing with, young children and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I was also very sort of fascinated by your own journey because, obviously I'm based in Singapore and we are now in Singapore and you are based in Singapore as well with your family. Could you tell me a bit more, apart from sharing with everybody how we met, what your journey was like that brought you to Singapore?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. So, you said too much about me, so let's continue with maybe mentioning a few things about you. So I was so inspired by you because I heard you doing your introduction at one of the lunches we had. I think it was with Stanley's lunch. And you were talking so quickly and talking so fast and telling everyone about everything you've done and what you've achieved while being a mom of three below, I don't know, maybe all of them below 3 or 4 was it at that time? So I was thinking okay, Charmian, I gotta meet her again. So let's drop her a line and let's meet for coffee. And then every time we meet, it's so interesting to talk to you, and you achieved so much during your career, and it's also your personality that was very fascinating to me. So every time I sit down at the table, we have no issue to start talking. We can talk for hours, and that's what's so interesting. And that's why I thought I was very pleased to join you for this talk today. And I think we can maybe let everyone know a bit our experience. So maybe I start with myself, why I ended up here. So I think it was a decision, or it was the need of a change. So I spent a year in LA in the States when I was younger, before I got married, and I knew at that time I wanted to go abroad again. So when many years later, with 2 kids and married to a husband, I realized that I was kind of running out of time a bit. So I wanted to leave my comfort zone, and I decided that we need to relocate or move to another country or jurisdiction again. So we wanted to pick Asia, and we wanted to pick Singapore. So I'm very, very happy and lucky that we could make it work. The reason why I realized, I made partner, I was 40, I had kids. I kind of achieved everything you can achieve, and I knew that I had another 35 years to go forward within the same company, or the same law firm, which I love my colleagues, I love my work there, but I felt like not enough. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to live somewhere else, to get to know people like you, local people. That's why I came here. So I was very lucky to be able to join Rajah and Tann and to work with locals and get to know local people. And I think it's sometimes it's tiring, of course, because you have to go out all the time. But maybe we'll talk about that later. I'm so fortunate. I'm so happy just to be here because it's like for me personally, it's a dream that has come true. It's interesting to hear more about your career because this is why I came here, and this is maybe you want to share something how you ended up being a partner.
It's so funny because you said you worked in the US and you came to Singapore, and actually, to be very candid, I've always wanted to live and work overseas. I'm born and bred Singaporean. I've lived here all my life. But I would be lying to say that I wanted to stay put in the same, country doing, what I do throughout, my career. Actually, I always wanted to kind of have a stint overseas, and somehow, life, happens while you're making plans. So, I tried to apply for something back in, 2008. Obviously, the outcome of that is no surprise. So that I thought, okay, I'll stay put for a bit. But I think that, staying in Singapore has also taught me, I think, certain things about myself. Like I've discovered myself many times over, even just staying put in the same, jurisdiction. And I think, one of the pivotal moments in my career was probably when I decided to leave the firm that I had, cut my teeth, so to speak. I don't love that expression, but it is an expression that works. After 12 years, right, in that firm. And it was a very, I still love it to bits, and I still am in very close contact with, the team members that, I forged friendships with there. And I think it was sort of a little bit scary for me because after 12 years, which is more than a decade, things felt familiar, safe, certain. There was a lot of certainty, and it's sort of, I don't like the saying same old, but it was, definitely there was a very high level of familiarity. And I think there is some safety and security in that, sort of knowing that, you wake up in the morning and there aren't any surprising comets that will hit you that day. And I decided to pivot into a global firm and to build essentially an Asia-Pacific practice from ground zero, which now when I look back, I'm like, wow, that took quite a lot of guts, right? It's kind of like jumping off a cliff and not knowing whether there is a safety net at the bottom. And by the way, at that same time, I was also about to get married. My husband just started his own business. And without knowing it, I was actually pregnant. I was actually pregnant when I got married. And so you can imagine, oh, by the way, and as if that's not enough, I actually moved house as well. So it's a lot in that 1 year and in that one moment. But I think that kind of spurred me to kind of really test, how much I could be capable of. And I think that, so looking back, I'm like, oh, wow, I survived it. And it kind of gives you a bit of courage. Like if you didn't actually take that leap of faith, I don't think you would know, how much you're capable of. So I think looking back actually was a blessing,
yes.
And then the other pivotal moment for me, I think, was actually COVID. And I think a lot of us will think of COVID in our own little way. I'm still reeling from the trauma that was this sort of we didn't know the end of the pandemic. We didn't know it. During the time, work was drying up, certain types of work. And then people were worried, right? Businesses were folding, right? Law firms were struggling to survive. I heard of equity partners that didn't even take home a salary for the entire year. So it was a very scary and uncertain period. But again, with any kind of crisis or perceived crisis, I feel like actually when we look back, right, with the benefit of hindsight, there's so many opportunities that were actually there. And it's sort of looking at the sort of the positives, right, in something like a disaster or a pandemic. And for me, it was actually, again, going back to basics. Okay, work has completely changed. The kind of things that clients are seeking, it's not like what it was before the pandemic. So I was noticing trends and patterns. And one thing that I noticed was this thing called digitalization and the promise of technology. When everything is shut down, when everything is, we're going to circuit breaker after circuit breaker, lockdowns, people are not moving out of the house. It's very much home-based. Everything is home-based learning, right? Medicine, telemedicine became a thing. Before pandemic, nobody ever thought digital health solutions, DIY, kind of like diagnoses or like trying to, I was actually pregnant with my second child during the heart of the pandemic. And I remember this product that actually I was advising the client on, and I felt extremely it was very close to heart because it was a blood glucose monitoring app, essentially. And unfortunately, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes with my second pregnancy. So actually advising the client on the sort of data privacy, cybersecurity, and tech kind of, regulatory matter, right, that we were involved in, and also being a consumer user of the product, I really saw how everything culminated, right? And I think it further drove my kind of like passion and the why for me for what I do. But those are just kind of like a couple of defining moments in my career. What about you? What has really kind of like given you that extra kind of drive or the sort of affirmation that you're on the right path, Alexandra?
So I think it's good that you mentioned that. So you seem to have left the comfort zone as well. Like after the 12 years, you decided to join another firm, an international one. I think this both kind of worked for both of us. So I think we needed a change. We needed something extra. We needed to leave the comfort zone, which is subjective. Of course, it doesn't work for everyone, but we seem to share that. And then I think the COVID, maybe just one add-on to what you said, I think COVID, luckily for me, was so, there's always a flip side, there's always a good side, there's always a bad side. And I think we keep on learning with that. There is always a new door opening at the end. So I think COVID was very tough. So it was also very tough thing for me because I just made partner and then COVID hit. So I couldn't go out. I couldn't gain visibility. I couldn't see people. I couldn't make people aware of myself. I couldn't show my qualities. I couldn't, just meet and mingle with people. So on the other hand, now looking back, thanks to COVID, I'm able to, work kind of in both jurisdictions. So I can still see virtually my clients back in Switzerland. It is very easy to work from home, or it's I think everyone got used to it, even though there are some companies, cutting back on that. I just read in the newspaper that not all the companies will uphold it. But in Singapore, seems a bit similar as in Switzerland. So about maybe three times a week you have to go to the office, and 2 days you can stay at home. So it helped me develop my model further as a working mom. So it helped me to coordinate everything and arrange for the family as well. And then maybe the last thing is, I think that's a very good thing about this passion. And I think for myself, I tell that also younger associates, or no, I have to say it the other way around. When we had discussions with junior associates and associates who wanted to drop out, they didn't want to continue because they told me, you know what, I didn't find the passion, or you seem to have a passion. I don't find my passion in the job. And I don't know whether it is the way that you find a passion or whether you develop a passion. So I think what was my issue, I was never enough self-confident maybe. I always struggled with myself. I thought okay, I was not good enough. So how can I deal with all the clients? How can I promote myself internally within the firm? And how can I promote myself externally with clients? Am I good enough? Personally, yes, my confidence is here, but professionally, maybe not. So I had to build that up at the end. So it's kind of during the years taking more ownership, learning how to deal with the clients made me made me stronger, made me more secure about myself, and maybe also made me find my passion, because it wasn't a passion I had from the beginning. Because I remember my early years, it was hard. It was hard. I didn't know how to handle everything. So it's like with the years, this passion developed. It's a joy. So I always say, like, when you feel like on a Sunday night, maybe in Asia it's not a Sunday night, but in Europe it's still, sometimes it's a Sunday where you don't work. It's a bit different. So clients usually don't expect you to answer emails on a Sunday. So Sunday night, if you once you had dinner with your family and then you think about tomorrow, Monday, how do you feel about it? And I never had I never had like a stone in my stomach. It always felt good. Yeah. I wanted to go out. I wanted to see my work colleagues, my peers. I wanted to work for the clients. I wanted to work for my families. So, in trust and estate, you deal with the families. They have similar problems as I do sometimes. So maybe it helps to be a mother and help them as families. So I think that passion, I found the passion, and I think you need to find the joy in the job, because the job is very hard. It's very tough. It takes a lot of time. You have to spend hours and hours in the office with the clients. You have to go out. You have to acquire new clients. You have to give speeches and so on. So maybe also COVID helped with this regard, because the only thing we could do at that time was giving webinars. Yeah. So, and I mean, this leads you to you. I mean, I'm a huge fan of your podcasts, data and tech podcasts. I think that's a great idea to keep on people's mind. It's a great idea to share all the knowledge. Maybe you would like to let me know a bit about your passion, or how you gain your visibility, how you found your niche, data and tech. Sure. How come?
I love that you shared all that, Alexandra. And actually, just coming back to the word passion, I would like to offer that actually, after many, many years of sort of, I guess, thinking about this concept, I've come to realize that it doesn't just hit you like sort of, overnight you realize, I love this thing. And it's going to stay the same. You're going to be equally excited every single day, whether it's Sunday night or Friday afternoon. You feel the same way. No, there are ebbs and flows. But the thing that keeps, I think, me on this stream or on this path is actually a commitment. Like it's kind of like a renewed commitment to. Sometimes you feel low. Okay, there are moments when you do feel low. You feel your energy is sapped. And it's kind of like the same thing with motherhood. Some days you feel completely clueless. It's a very tough job. Occasionally thankless. You feel like you put in so much hard work, effort, and when the kid still has a meltdown, you feel like I feel like, oh my goodness, what have I done wrong? And then I start thinking, I'm not good at this. Like, is there a guidebook that I can kind of just implement and just execute? And then it's a shortcut, right, to the model answer of how to be a mother or how to be a great lawyer. And I realized that there isn't a shortcut. There isn't. It takes a journey. It takes that commitment every single day. Just waking up. Some days you think, so I don't believe in motivation. I don't feel like passion is like you wake up and it's a feeling. Like you're like, I'm so excited. I love my work. I love my work. I love my work. And then you go to the office and you're like, I love my clients. I love my boss. I love everything about this matter that I'm working on. It's not going to be like that, whether it's motherhood or even a marriage or even with practice, right? But I think, and to the point about, you asked me about my LinkedIn and sort of my, my content and, sort of what I put out there. Actually, that was the genesis, right? I was thinking to myself, it's kind of like people that go to the gym in the morning or they do a workout every morning, right? Why do they do it? I'm sure some days they don't feel like going to the gym, but they still do it because they're probably thinking like it will add up, right? The consistency adds up and then they get the results. And also I think it's more doing and less thinking. Sometimes when you think like, oh, am I really passionate about this? Is this really is this my life mission? Like we overthink things sometimes. But sometimes the little efforts, they accumulate and then you realize, oh, at the end of it, you see results. And so coming back to why I even started to put myself out there on LinkedIn and other platforms, the truth is that it suddenly hit me that, just like an athlete goes to the gym, the tools of his trade will be his physique, right? Like making sure that he has stamina, that he's agile, that he's flexible, that he's strong, right? Whatever it might be, or she for that matter. And in our trade, I realized that it is our brain And it's also sort of kickstarting that engine, right? Our brain. And also words, language. And so I was thinking, if I could just commit, right, to posting one post every day, whether it's the cleverest thing you could think of, whether it's the most original content, or it's just literally a reshare, like a repost of somebody else's, stuff, or I found, I read something on the news and I thought it was interesting and I wanted to add like even just a one-liner type commentary on it, give my take on it, right? I'm just going to commit to that. And so I did that for a period of months, and I didn't realize how it totally surpassed any expectation I had of whatever you call it, right? ROI, return on investment. I didn't do it for the sort of, of course I was hoping to engage, well, whoever was reading, at that time, probably like 3 people, including myself. But then it suddenly just took off. And I would say it takes off in 2 ways. One is I was translating perhaps quite inaccessible, legalistic concepts to people who may not be operating in my field and who may not even understand what I do. Because a lot of people think tech and data and they think very niche, not within our industry, doesn't, it's to do with like personal data or privacy. Actually, it's not. It's much broader than that. And sort of like being the bridge between the lawyer, which is what I've been professionally trained to be, but also the rest of world. And I feel like that translation helps, right, to bring people into your world. So it's connection. The second thing that really I saw in an instant when I was committing to this sort of daily practice was how global we all are. Like, just because I'm this Singaporean lawyer working in Singapore, doing whatever I do and covering APAC, that's a boundary that, by the way, doesn't actually exist except in the mind. And the minute I started speaking with people from literally all parts of the globe, they would reach out to me. They would say, oh, I love that, you're posting this about Asia or this jurisdiction and this, because we don't know what's happening in APAC. We might be experts on the GDPR in Europe or in the US, and we don't know that actually, wow, there's so much happening in Asia. And so it's kind of like I realized that actually we're all connected. And technology, right, I mean, for all its, flaws, it actually does provide that platform, if you harness it well, to actually reach out to a global audience. And so I would urge the younger generation, right? Because actually they live and breathe tech. I can tell you they know more apps than we do, and they know how to, they're probably, they're probably able to do a lot more with whatever, they work with and they're familiar with on a day-to-day basis, and they should harness the power of tech, right? Put themselves out there, right? Not in a sort of attention-seeking kind of like clickbaity way, but more in terms of taking pride and ownership of their voice, and I think that actually is the fundamental, it really leads to why somebody would derive passion for what they do. Yeah, because they own it.
Yes, taking ownership. I think that's one of together with the passion, but taking ownership. The ones are earlier, others are later. So I think it's very individually, but. I think what you mentioned too, and I think that is something for me very important, that you seem to couple this passion together with your commitment and your joy. I mean, it's the same word again, but you do what you like. So you found okay, you're kind of this very entertaining person, I love listening to you. So because it's fun, it's interesting. So you can do this combination, you like to talk. So you show the people, here I am, this is what I like. People notice that. So I think to encourage younger ones, okay, some may be, like tech, some may like other people or mingling or, meddling with people, just being around. I think for me it was important to find a way which is me. It's my view. So my personality that has to be matched with my kind of working, my kind of being out there, meeting the client, serving the client. So what is important to me? This is my values. So I need to combine my values with my work, and I do it the best way when I find it in my way. Because as you said, maybe somehow like they enter a room and they tell everyone, okay, you need a lawyer, you have to come and see me. That is not my personality. My personality is maybe a little bit more on the more silent side, or like just I first come in and I listen and then I talk, or some come in and talk. It doesn't matter. So I think at the end you need to find your own way how to do it, and it can be in any way. It can be, and this is something you mentioned too. Just try it out. For example, for me, it didn't work at the beginning to talk to people. I was more confident in writing. Eventually, I noticed, or I realized, why don't I talk to the people? Why don't I give them a call? Because it's more efficient. I just quickly talk on the phone instead of writing 10 emails back and forth. And at the end, you have a misunderstanding, right? So it's that helped me in a way. And now I'm so happy to meet people, to learn more about their stories. So I forget about this thing like I have to sell something, because I just enjoy being with people and meeting people. And maybe eventually, okay, they think of me because, okay, they like my personality, they trust me. And this is maybe another thing. In Europe, it's more capabilities based. So you can, you find a client because you're just a certified specialist in inheritance law, as I am. But over here in Asia, I realized it's more about meeting the people for several times, just having a nice chat. At the end, you may mention a bit the work you do, but it's more about the trust you build. And this works out for me, so it may work out for others. You may not. It's like this taking ownership by doing something which is suitable for your own personality.
I completely agree. And in fact, I think that's why we connected, because I think we are both quite similar. We are looking for the sort of real, authentic connection.
Yes.
Doesn't matter that you're practicing in a different area of law, that you're actually not even from Singapore, but we have so many common areas and common ground between us, and we are actually seeking that authentic connection.
Yes.
So I will tell you a little bit about why I've derived this sort of realization over the years as well. I grew up in a sort of with the sort of thinking that female partners had to be a certain type. So firstly, law firm partners had to be a certain mold, and they were usually scary, sort of litigation type, sort of very, powerful, very eloquent, but mostly inaccessible. So they're not, if you were, say, a junior associate, you wouldn't even begin to think about, knocking on their door and saying, hey, could I, chat with you about sort of, your life, journey and your career and how you... It was very like, oh, no, it was definitely a very hierarchical kind of structure that I trained at. And then over the years, I think I realized that, it's not going to work for me to try and fit myself into that mold, whatever that even looked like, right? So with female partners, my version of it was they needed to be quite cold. They needed to be extremely effective, right? Like they had to be extremely cold, very sort of, hard almost, right? No time to be weak, no time to be nice, no time to be approachable. I mean, it was just not, those were not the adjectives that I would associate with my version, right? My perception of what a female partner would be like. But then I realized that it wasn't going to work for me. I'm the way I am. I'm extremely dynamic. I'm extremely approachable. I love the human connection. And if I could actually work with that, and maybe instead of fitting into some so-called mold, if I could create my own mold and inspire like-minded women in the profession or even, in other professions, why not?
Yes.
Why not take that on? Because it would take more work for me to try and squeeze myself into that mold, which I know I probably can't, because I'll just get disillusioned and then leave and think, oh, this is not for me. Why not work with what I have, right? Make it my identity. And actually, I've realized that has paid off. Like, a lot of people tell me that, I apparently, I'm in my zone or in my element when I'm speaking from the heart, authentically, throwing in a joke or two when I'm presenting. Public speaking has become, people are very scared of public speaking. I can tell you the same thing, right? This is a discipline. There have been moments I've had butterflies in my stomach, but you know what? I just say, look, practice makes perfect. With every time I go on stage, that confidence grows. And if you just keep at it, soon you'll realize, oh my goodness, actually, when I first started, I was like shaking. Now, actually, it's not that scary. And so I think, like with everything, you just own it. Put in your own identity. It doesn't have to look like what you think it has to look like just because somebody else did it that way. Make it your own, and I think you'll be surprised with the results.
Yeah. So it's a journey, but I think that's something we can also share, or that's what I try to tell younger ones. You don't really have to invent everything anew, right? Why don't you take the techniques? Why don't you take the experience from all the more senior female lawyers, partners or senior associates? It doesn't matter. It's just we need to share more. I think we can help each other. We need to support. We can mentor.
Agreed.
Younger ones. Of course, I've seen something, or sometimes if the response is not the expected one, it makes it also difficult. But usually, if they want to move forward, if they or in the driving seat, then I'm most happy to share that and to help. Or, it doesn't have to be the right way, as you say. It's my way, but there are 10 different ways you can do it. And try to, I think this is a bit, sometimes that I find it's a bit, it's a bit a female thing, because someone told me about the 3 M's, and I think it's like this: marriage doesn't count for me so much, but motherhood or maternity and mobility. And so I leave aside maybe the first one. Let's talk about maternity, mobility, and this mingle thing. I gave it the name mingle because it's network. It's not an M, but it's a mingling thing. We have some kind of a different. Yes, we are female, so we're gonna give birth to the children, but we miss that time somehow. It's a time where you're out of the market, where you talk about babies all the time, which is nice, of course, at that time, but we miss this months, maybe we miss a year, and we don't have the time to go out. We're not mobile. We want to stay with the family, and this is something that is a gap we need to fulfill. And I hope we can try to complete or this experience, maybe because the experience, as you mentioned, this commitment or this always finding or always making a decision is also a motherhood thing, because there is not no answer. There is always a yes or no, because a child and a client is asking you, should I do it or should I not do it? Would you recommend to do it or not? Yes, you have to give an advice. You have to make up your mind. Also, this is also in family. You have to organize it the whole day. So you have to make decisions. That helps you in the job, but to keep that running, to build up our network, I think that is something we could try to do together. All the females, not really, not just the females. It's just like the males and the females try to catch up in a way, a bit, fill that missing years, and try to build up our network, because I think this is eventually will pay off. That is something where the work is going to come from. I
agree, and that's why this Unplugged podcast is one of many much needed and initiatives or platforms for us to have conversations, because the truth is that the more we come together, the more we talk about joint, challenges, but also with a solutions mindset. So how do we improve what the situation is at the moment? And I think there is a lot of work to be done in the space, because there are not enough women that actually own their power. They don't realize how amazing they are. I can tell you as a mom, there were so many times I thought it's just easier to kind of like give up, or maybe just let somebody else. And actually I remember thinking to myself, it was like I was running a marathon. Okay, not literally, because I'm not fit enough to run one, but let's just say, around the running circuit, and I felt like I was running at a steady pace. And I don't know why, but when I had my first child, my second, and my third in quick succession, so I had 3 just over 3 years, I felt like I had stopped. Like it was like I needed to stop, right? Because maybe of an injury. And I felt like there were people lapping me, meaning they were overtaking me, right? Circle after, and I felt like I was being left behind. That was the kind of mental block I had at one point in time. And I thought to myself, this is demoralizing. I mean, it feels like I've literally taken, 3 years, off from my career, and I've like, will I get discounted and stuff like that? And not to say that I didn't have the support network. And actually, frankly, nowadays it's great, right? It's a good time to be a working mother, to be honest, and especially in Singapore, because I do feel we have the structures and at least the awareness in place and the conversations in place and I felt supported, to be fair, but I did feel that I was letting people down because I was holding back, right? Like I was like having to focus on my kids. But then somebody said something to me, and also my husband kind of reignited that statement. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing well, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep to your lane. Just stick to your lane. Don't compare. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I realized in that instant, why am I, I didn't even realize it, but subtly comparing myself with other people, other moms, other women that are not moms, that were like, racing ahead, charging ahead, men for sure, because I mean, no offense, right? But men, even when they have children, like, my husband, he took 1 week of paternity leave. I mean, I'm not suggesting that is the way to go, but that's all he took, and I was like, I took 4 months, plus when you're back in the workforce, it takes time to ramp up. Like you don't just hit the ground running after 4 months of maternity. You're still having to, at least in my case, having to look for a nursing room, and still having to and so there were so many logistical things even in that period, right, leading up to sort of fully back on board. So I think it's just remembering that the only person you should be comparing yourself against or to is yourself. Maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Are you who you wanted to be 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And actually, if I were to be really honest with myself, yes. Like I didn't think so much about, am I measuring against, this other person or that other person? And by the way, it's very easy to look at social media, or even just, based on what you see somebody puts out there, their highlights of their life, and think, she's doing amazing, or they're doing amazing. But there's a lot of stuff that you don't get to see or hear about necessarily. And actually everybody is fighting their own battle. Yes. And there is no benefit in comparing yourself with them. It's just a slippery slope, and probably not very accurate either. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's comparing or overthinking to. That's a little bit the female mind, I think. It's like a bit. So, but what we can do is support each other, And I mean, I was struggling too. It's like it's. Not 3 kids, just 2 kids in a row, but I never felt at the right place. When I was at home, I felt I had to be at work. It's or the other way around. It's like you struggle and you don't have a domestic helper. But in Europe, right. So it's like I have to say, it's where I'm having my a very good time over here at the working mom.
Alexandra, we could go on for hours. looks like we'll have to, meet for lunch again.
Yes,
somewhere nice to continue our conversation. But it's been so wonderful, having this heart-to-heart dialogue with you. I hope our audience who are still tuning in found this interesting. Please don't forget to say hello if you meet either of us, on the streets of Singapore. And it's been fascinating having this conversation with you, Alexandra. Thank you.
Thank you.